Hey everyone, how are we doing? And welcome back to another build guide. Today I am extremely excited. So excited that I'm already knocking things over because we have here a budget gaming PC that does things properly. And as always, we're going to show you all of the parts in the rig, show you why they're in there, what they can do, show you how to put it together, and of course give you the PC gaming benchmarks to show you what this gaming computer can actually do. Now our build begins with a very familiar looking chip. This is the Ryzen 3300x CPU. And this is an incredibly enticing option for gaming PCs because it's very budget orientated, it's not going to cost an arm and a leg, but it is going to allow your graphics card to do all of its work without really holding you back. And yes, there are some exceptions to this rule. Battlefield 5, for instance, last time we did see some CPU bottlenecking. But the point is that for most games that you have in your Steam, Uplay, Origin, all of your libraries aren't really going to need any more than this. So why spend money on something that is going to help in a few games when you could put that money into something that is going to help you out with all of them? Which is why we're using a 1660 Super in this build. So we've actually bumped it up from last time. We were using a 1650, but this is going to allow us to get even higher frame rates. So if you're wanting to play at higher refresh rates, this is going to allow you to do it. This is one from Palette. It's not the most exciting graphics card to look at, but that doesn't matter when it's going to allow you to play all of the games that you want without really having to worry about, I don't know, turning a load of settings down. It's not a 1080p Ultra card in every situation, but you'd be surprised just how capable this thing is. When it comes to the motherboard though, I know already people are going to comment and saying, why on earth is a budget build using X570? And I'll tell you why. It's a little bit of a weird one. We'll start with the main reason that this is actually really cheap at the moment. You can get this for around about £140. It's the X570-A Pro that I've used in loads of builds on this channel. And I've also got here a B550 motherboard as well. And I would recommend this, but this is actually £20 more at the time of filming. It's M80X, and this is obviously better than this one, so I don't really understand why you'd go for B550 at the moment. But your other option is to grab a B450 motherboard, but then this one gets even more complicated because you can get a board for around about £60, so you're saving a hell of a lot of money. But because the motherboards are older than the chip, you may or may not need a BIOS update depending on when the board was manufactured, and there is no real way to guarantee that you're getting one of these newer boards that's going to work out of the box. And yes, I know that this sounds a little bit boring, a little bit rambly, you just want to know about the games, but this is important, goddammit. We need to be serious on this channel. Sometimes. Right, that balances out the seriousness. Now you may remember in our last video we used 8 GB of RAM with a single stick, and again I got loads of criticism. Why on earth are you doing this? You're an idiot. I would unsubscribe, but I'm not already. PC Centric, you suck. Well, I'm going to annoy you even more and stick to my guns and say that for this particular rig, we're going to put 16 gig in, which is our target, but just buy a single stick now and then get another one in a month or so's time. I don't think it makes sense for anyone really in this day and age to get 2 sets of 4 for a total of 8, because the prices of RAM have come down so much that you just don't need to do that anymore. And as there are quite a lot of games that will take advantage of 16 these days, I think this is what you should be aiming towards. Look for around about 3000 megahertz and up. When it comes to storage, I'm going to make a slight modification to last time because you can actually get SSDs so cheaply now that I don't think you need a hard drive unless you actively have a reason for one. So I'm going to say just grab something like the BX500 in a 500 gig or a terabyte capacity. It's going to actually cost you less to get a larger capacity SSD than it would to get like a smaller one and a hard drive, so I think that makes way more sense. And then we have changed our power supply from the Xilinx one that we had before. Corsair sent out the Z? This is the CV450. It's not a very exciting product, let's be honest, at the best of times. This is not modular, so you're saving some money there, but you are going to have more cables floating about. Something like this is going to be more than enough wattage for your current PC and any upgrades you decide to do in the future, which means we can actually get building really. I'll quickly say that the case we're using is the Spec Delta. I like the fact that you actually get 3 different RGB case fans on the front of this, and then 1 jet black non-RGB on the rear. And what you'll find is if you do go for a cheaper case, feel free to do that. You don't have to use this one, but you'll find that you don't get as many, if any in some cases, case fans, which if you're going to have to go out and buy some anyway, you might as well just spend a little bit more money if you can and get a case that comes with them in the first place. So those are all of the parts that you're going to need to actually build your PC. Now it's time for the process, but first, a quick word from this video's sponsor, ASUS, and their awesome Christmas in July promotion. If you're in the market for some PC gaming goodies, then ASUS has you covered, with huge discounts available on laptops, monitors, peripherals, components, and much, much more. Not only that, but with cashback offers and a free copy of Dying Light 1 and 2 with selected bundles, there's never been a better time to upgrade your setup. Save big with the link down below, but hurry, offers end soon. The first thing to do, as always, is to grab the motherboard from the box, plop this down just for a second, and then grab the I/O shield and a SATA cable, and then plop your motherboard on top of the box. And now we can actually start to install different components that will sit above the motherboard. If you're using a PCIe SSD, it will go in this little slot right here at the top, but we're going to put our RAM and CPU in, as it makes it a whole lot easier to do this on top of the box. Grab your CPU from its protective pouch, lift up the little latch on the motherboard, find the gold arrow that should be somewhere on your CPU, line this up, and then just drop your CPU in with no force whatsoever. It should just sit in nicely. Lower down the lever, and that is the CPU done. Then grab your RAM, remembering if you're trying to save money, only to get one stick at first and get the second one in like a month or so's time. Today we're using both sticks to fully sort of show off what this PC will be able to do. Installing our CPU cooler is incredibly simple. Here I'm using some thermal paste, as I've used this cooler before, but otherwise you're just lining it up really and lowering it down. Don't forget to plug in this little cable. That's your CPU fan. This goes right at the top. With both side panels off, you can see we now have our quirky little case. It's very lightweight. All of these cables need to go into the motherboard, and then around the back you'll have your little bag of goodies, or box of goodies I should say, that has all of the mounting hardware and all the screws we're going to need for this step. But while we're here, do grab the I/O shield and place it in so that it's facing the right way. Then carefully drop this down so that it goes over those little standoffs that are pre-applied for this ATX form factor. Because at this point in the build you feel like you're playing a game of Operation or something, because the screws always seem to move about and the holes are very small, especially when you have shaky hands like I do. I drink way too much coffee. I turn coffee into computers. Oh, and then you... Operation Screw That Down is now complete, and you can see we have our PC starting to look, I don't know, quite similar to all the other PCs I think I've put together. A jet black build is actually very common these days, but it's coming along, it's looking good, let's not take anything away. Around the back we do have these little SSD caddies, which are, well, they're super tight again, so you have to use screwdrivers to actually get it undone in the first instance, but then you just grab the little caddy and then take your SSD out of its packaging, and it should then just very easily sit on top like this, and then you'll slot it in. Told you it was easy. Oh, I put it in upside down. Plug in a SATA cable right at the base. Don't forget you'll need to power this later as well, but then just feed the cable around and then just connect this to one of these SATA ports on your motherboard. While we're here, we can also plug in things like the USB 3, the USB 2, and then all of the different case inputs, so things like your on button, reset switch, all of that good stuff. This is probably quite a good opportunity as well to plug in all of your case fans. The ones at the front though will have this little RGB connection, and these are traditional RGB by the looks of it, so they're not addressable. You have a 4-pin that you plug at the top of your motherboard. Fiddly bit completed then, you should have something that looks a little bit like this, still quite lightweight, easy to go really. And there's just 2 more components to fit in. This has actually been ridiculously simple. I will put the graphics card in now, so we just need to remove the PCIe slot covers. Here we have our little palette graphics card. You can see it's pretty diddy, not really anything overly special going on there, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the performance, so just plop that in there. But whatever you do, don't forget to screw it back in, because that could get awkward. It's like a flying fish, but it's a flying graphics card. I'll tell you what, Corsair, I will tell you what, you have done a good job on this. All of the cables a jet black. There are no horrible yellow ketchup and mustard things that are gonna ruin the look of your build. This should slide in down the bottom. Make sure that your fan is facing downwards, providing you actually have the ventilation to do so. It definitely is quite annoying having all of these cables lying around, but as I sort of alluded to earlier, on a 450 watt power supply, you're probably going to use most of them anyway. I remember one of my friends, I recommended they get a modular power supply and they ended up using every single cable anyway, so it sort of did defeat the purpose a little bit. You just need to find somewhere to hide these cables, but you can just park them down in the hard drive cage because we're not using any hard drives. So to be honest, not a huge deal. I'm not sure if this is lazy YouTuber or what everybody does. Just stuff them in there as tightly as you can because you're never gonna see them. With a little bit of light cable management, I'll do it properly later, we now have our final and completed gaming PC. You can see that really didn't take very long at all. So the question really is, are all of the cables connected? So we've got power for the graphics card, ATX, CPU at the top. We've got all of these different cables plugged in down the bottom, SATA cable for the hard drive, USB. Yeah, let's get this thing turned on, see if it works. Now, unfortunately, the reason I'm feeling a little bit more nervous than usual is because I did damage the motherboard. I scratched it a little bit when I was actually removing the cooler last time I used it. Okay, I didn't expect that. So it probably ruined the board, which is a bit worrying in the sense that this whole thing might not work and it's sort of been, well, my fault and no one else's, which would be pretty bad. But there is only one way to find out. So fingers crossed then. Oh, it's doing something. It's doing something. I don't know where to sit. I've never used these camera angles before. I'm sitting on the mic. It's a disaster area. The stress is getting to me. But have I damaged it beyond repair? That's promising. That's promising. Come on. Come on, please. So far, so good. Yes, jumping straight into Fortnite then. This is running at 1440p high settings. You can see we're getting around about 80 frames per second or so. Really not too shabby at all. Bear in mind, this is probably a little bit of a higher resolution than you might want to go for this PC. It goes to show just how capable it is. It looks great, it feels awesome as well. Dropping it down to 1080p, and I'm telling you, this thing feels incredible. For what is essentially a budget PC, this is doing absolute wonders, and to be able to play at 120 to 140 frames a second without any form of stutter or anything is incredible. Jumping across to Planet Zoo, once again at 1440p, and we're hitting around about 60 frames a second on average at high. Our minimums are definitely dropping a little bit, so if you have an adaptive sync monitor or something, I think that would help you. But obviously this is a very intensive game, and to be able to run it at high at 1440p I think is not bad at all. Whereas dropping down to 1080p, it does indeed look like we're CPU bottlenecks. So this is another example of a game where you'll have to lower down some CPU intensive settings to actually get a higher frame rate, or of course upgrade your CPU or overclock it to something more powerful. But now it's time for my game, Apex Legends, 1440p high settings. We hit the ground and there are people everywhere and there's no gun. This is a disaster area, that's what this is. But we are getting around about 65 frames a second, so very, very playable, no doubt about that. Give me a gun, give me a gun, give me a gun. This is not gonna end well. Yep, told you it wasn't gonna end well. Oh, this isn't fair. This is not fair. Let's try this again with a full squad. See if I can actually get a gun this time at 1080p resolution, and already so much smoother. This is what I'm talking about. 100 frames a second. I'm ready for this. Right then, let's jump back into Battlefield 5, because this is the game that gave us a few problems last time, and because we are using the same CPU, I do expect to see similar issues, but it's definitely feeling a bit smoother this time round. I am of course recording at the same time, so we're fully stressing out this system. There definitely is a little bit of dipping here and there, but it's nothing too bad. I think once you've given the game a little bit of time to stabilize, then it does just that. Obviously, if you are just going to be playing Battlefield, I would recommend that you do get a better CPU if you can, but I appreciate not everyone has the option. So this is the way I would go if I was going for a budget system. And so there you go then. This is the Budget Gaming PC 2020, and I am so proud of what I've put together here, and I think you would be too, because there is so much potential inside this little box, it is crazy. If you think we've got all of the fans that we need, we wouldn't have to throw anything away to make some upgrades. You can just slot in a Ryzen 9 if you really wanted to on this board, PCIe storage, 32 gigabytes of RAM. There is so many options. Yes, there definitely are a few more things you could do to cut a few more corners and save yourself a little bit more cash. The main one really to be dropped down to a B450 motherboard. You'll have to make sure that you're getting one that has the latest BIOS, which is tricky to do, but that's certainly a way to save yourself another like 70, 80 pounds. But regardless, I will leave all of the Amazon affiliate links to all of these components down in the description below if you want to check out current pricing or just learn a little bit more. And of course, while you're down there, don't miss out on the ASUS Christmas and July holiday sale. Not only are there cashback and game bundle deals, but you can grab an X570 motherboard for only £170, a Quad HD ultra-wide 100Hz monitor for £530, and then the super smart Ryu liquid cooler for £145. So many deals, such little time. Check them out today with the link down below. Thank you so much for watching this video though, I really appreciate it. Smash that like button if you've enjoyed it. Get subscribed for more builds. If you want to know how to build a PC, then I'll leave that video in the end screen as well that will go through everything in greater detail. But thank you so much for checking it out. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one.